Today in studio, I've got Shehaam with me, and she's from Human Settlements. She's a manager of Human Settlements of the Garden Route District Municipality, who's going to be telling us more about the affordable housing opportunities in the municipality. The municipality is preparing to offer residents in the district. She will also explain what different options are available and what residents must do to form part of this database. Well, good morning, Shehaam Sims. Now, can you refresh the listeners' minds and tell everyone what the difference between the district municipality and the local municipality are?
Thank you so much, Sebastian. I think it will be remiss of us if we do not, when speaking about government, and specifically local government, that we do not mention the issue of legislation. So I will deal with the legislation up front and then deal with the actual detail a little bit later. So we rely on Section 83 of the Municipal Structures Act, which stipulates that municipalities have powers and functions assigned to it in terms of the Constitution, particularly matters listed in Part B of Schedules 5 and 6. Now, in local government, there are things like metros, generally called a municipality type A. You have a municipality type B, which is your local government on the ground, the ones that you know, and then you have a district, which is a local C. In a metro, you will have a city, and it's a large metro, as it were, and they basically operate exclusively in terms of the executive and legislative functions. Whilst in local B municipalities, they work together with a local C municipality, which is the district. Now, there are very specific things that municipalities are required to do. Firstly, there are 7 B municipalities in the region that falls under the Garden Route District Municipality. And the very specific functions that they do, and it's own to themselves, they then do this on their own. However, the district would be a coordinating role player, and certainly would look to supporting B municipalities if and when required. Now, those local functions that I refer to could be the following: building control, electricity supply, fire and rescue services, law enforcement, parks and recreation, municipal roads, stormwater, water and sanitation, cemeteries and refuse collection. Differently, the district municipality will do what is called bulk supply or coordination across those 7 areas. Now, I've not mentioned those 7 municipalities, and I'll mention them right now. You have Beto, which is based in Plettenberg Bay.
Yes.
Knysna, George, Mossel Bay, Hessequa, which is also based in Riversdale, Kannaland, who you'll identify with Ladysmith, and in Oudtshoorn. Mm-hmm. And the Garden Route District Municipality basically forms the region into which this falls, and this is normally demarcated by the actual demarcation board. I think that the only thing that I want to say further is the following: a district is responsible for promoting the overall development of the regional area, and words like coordination, cooperation, assistance, and support rings true for this. It must ensure integrated development planning for the district as a whole. It must promote bulk infrastructure development and the provision of bulk services for such things as water, electricity, sewage, and municipal health. Now, I just want to quickly point out that, for example, you will find that I have mentioned fire in both instances.
Yes.
Now, in the case of fire and rescue, the local B municipality would be dealing with the town together with such things as structural damage, whereas a district municipality basically will deal with fault fires and basically lend assistance when required by the district municipality. I think the last thing that I will say is that you are represented on a Garden Route District Municipality through your councillors who are basically nominated to serve firstly from their B municipality, they are nominated to then serve on the Garden Route District Municipality. And this way you are represented at both the local B as well as at the C municipality, which is the district municipality.
Very well said right there. Thank you so much. Well, it's Shehaam Sims having a nice chat with us here. Please explain to listeners why you are here today.
All right. We have noted that in the past, people placed their names onto what was called the Housing Demand Database, or as you would call it ordinarily as the waiting list. But predominantly the people who put their names onto those lists are people who essentially earn less than 3,500 Rand per month per household. In this case, we are trying to build up a database that deals with what is called affordable housing. And I'll stop momentarily and say to you, affordable housing basically deals with two types of programs. One is basically to deal with people who would wish to rent, and it's called social rental housing. Alternatively, FLISP, which is a shortened form of the words finance linked individual subsidy program. These two programs basically address people who have incomes that range between 1,850 Rand up to 22,000 Rand per month. This is for the rental opportunity.
Right.
Whereas for ownership, in terms of FLISP, it would mean people who have income that basically is from 3,501 Rand to 22,000 Rand per month. So the big difference is that we are dealing with a database on which people have placed their names and made an actual application to basically get access to a housing opportunity. But this would be what you ordinarily would call an RDP or a BNG type house.
All right.
So the majority of people's names on that list falls into that particular category. In fact, there are about 65,000 people on that particular waiting list or demand database. And on that list, we have noted that there's 1,117 applicants for potentially that affordable housing opportunities that I was speaking about.
Yes.
But as you well know, when dealing with databases, you collect information up front, and by the time you get to dealing with the actual people, a number of years or months have gone by, and information needs to be updated.
Oh, yes.
Because people, for example, they obviously are not an owner of a house.
Yes.
That said means that they potentially move from place to place, and they change their contact details.
Or their financial circumstances
Have
can change.
changed, absolutely. And therefore, it would mean that we would have to reassess your position in terms of whether you'd qualify for BNG or for the finance-linked individual subsidy, alternatively the social rental housing. But mind, I should say to you the following, that both the cases of the finance-linked individual subsidy or the BNG would require that you did not own a house before, and would require that you had not had access to a government subsidy before. Whereas the social rental, you may make application for such a rental opportunity despite the fact that you may have been a property owner in the past. Thank you.
Thank you for clearing that. Now I got one question for you. How does the registration process work, Mrs. Sims? And if you already referred to the demand database like you did previously, and what is the difference between the registration process being listed on this demand database and being listed on the housing database of local municipalities?
So I made mention earlier of this demand database. It is actually an official term called the demand database. This particular one, when you have applied at your local B municipality, you basically on that database, and you stay there until you are in fact assisted. Alternatively, if your salary, for example, has changed, then you would have been regarded either as assisted or no longer qualifying. However, this process that we are dealing with is not an actual application. It is simply a questionnaire whereupon we are checking to see what you are interested in so that we can respond accurately to the actual demand. So in this case, again, the majority of people on the waiting list are people earning less than 3,500, and that is the reason why we are keen to ask you to please make yourself known to us by virtue of filling in a particular questionnaire, of which basically we have on the website, and we will be doing some various forms of other advertising to ensure that you are able to get hold of this questionnaire. The questionnaire is simply to deal with your expressing your interest in either social rental housing, alternatively ownership in the form of finance-linked individual subsidies.
The FLISP one you're talking about.
Correct, sir.
Yes. So that means one must, in layman's terms, just check yourself and your status and where you fit in, And while we're talking about that, who will qualify for the two types of housing options?
So there are very, very strict rules in this regard. And according to the housing legislation, you firstly have to be a South African citizen. Secondly, you have to be over the age of 18 and be able to contract. You could be married or single or cohabitating, but you must have dependents. You basically could fall into any of these categories. However, your monthly income thresholds are recognized. And so again, for the various programs, the various salaries or incomes per month are taken into account. And you must not have received a state subsidy before if you are applying for an ownership opportunity. So once again, I'll state with respect to social rental, it is 1,850 Rand per month, up to 22,000 Rand per month per household. And just by the way, this number was just increased from 15,000 Rand per month to 22,000 Rand per month, which means that we can encompass more people into that fold. However, with respect to the ownership one again, our finance-linked individual subsidy or FLISP, your income should be between 3,501 Rand and 22,000 Rand per month.
All right. Well, thank you for clearing that one. Now, after registering on the demand database, what will happen? And after talking about the information received from interested people into account, the land properties which have been identified for potential projects in the various municipalities will be prepared for the appropriate housing projects.
So after you've registered on the demand database, we keenly look at the information provided, and with that information we are able to determine what products need to be delivered upon. However, as with all housing projects and following the rule of law and all legal requirements, we will basically be going through the preparation of housing projects, and these could include, and in all likelihood would include, all of the following: checking to see if the zoning of the land is correct. If not, then you would be required to cause a rezoning of such. You also have to make sure that you have an application for funding in order to be able to do the construction of the underground services as well as the top structures. Feasibility studies are done to check to see whether or not, for example, the bulk infrastructure has carrying capacity and whether all other legislative requirements are met, for example, environmental studies and the likes. And then obviously one also needs to lead up to looking at the actual land use and getting approval for building plans at the local B municipalities.
Glad you mentioned that, the local B municipalities. Can I still register on the Garden Route District Municipality database if I have registered on a database of a local municipality?
The answer is absolutely yes. And in fact, I'm encouraging you that even if you have applied on the local database of the B municipalities, which by the way is common to the provincial government's database, so it is one database as it were. And yes, the encouragement is there for you to, even if you are on that waiting list, if you know that your income is over 3,501 Rand for ownership, please do complete the form. If, on the other hand, your income is 1,850 Rand and upwards but lesser of 22,000 Rand per month, then you are encouraged to do precisely that, because that will allow us to be able to determine what products are required going forward.
Wow, very interesting chat we have right here this morning, and I trust and hope you're still enjoying this. Well, because I'm enjoying this, very informative. Now, where can people complete this housing database forms that are applicable to Garden Route District Municipality?
So as I mentioned earlier, we basically will have the questionnaire, or it is already currently on the Garden Route website. You can also speak to the local B municipalities to ask after the questionnaire.
Yes.
And I please remind listeners that when filling in this questionnaire, you are not filling in an application form. An application form is a rather tedious and lengthy process, which basically also means that you have to bring in lots of attachments to provide proof of certain claims that you make. For example, if you say that you have dependents, we need to know who they are, how old they are, birth certificates,
Yes.
and so on. If you claim that you are working and that you are earning a certain income, we will be required to see that payslip. Whereas with respect to this questionnaire, we are not going into that detail at the moment. That application process will follow at a later stage.
And seeing that you mentioned the website, is there a website that people can go to?
I think it is www.gardenroute.gov.za.
Wow, thank you so much. Been a fun chat. Any last messages from you to the listener?
Yes, certainly. I look forward to receiving as many applications as possible so that we can fine-tune what product you require in order for us to be able to house people who have up to this point not had that opportunity. Thank you so much.